It's Monday. It's September 20th, 2021. Little after 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Some of you are probably getting off work right now. A lot of you are probably still at work and just clocked in working that second shift, or you're picking up your kids from their extracurricular activities, or you're figuring out what's on the menu tonight for dinner. But I'm here in my little office slash studio recording another episode of my podcast. Welcome back to another edition of Monday Evening Quarterback. I am Christian Simpson, also the founder, creator, NFL and college football analyst of a football network called The Daily Blitz, where we specialize in everything football 24/7, 365, you name it. We try our best to cover it. I'm back. The first episode last week was so amazing, and I'm just so grateful to be back here again. Your love and your feedback really meant the absolute world to me, and I'm back to share my thoughts again. If you've been following along with me from the beginning or you just joined a couple years ago, thank you so much. Welcome back. And if this is your first time, hello. I hope you're well and I hope you enjoy what it is I'm about to present to you. I have another jam packed show for you today. Wild weekend of football once again. Started with the NFL on Thursday, week two, game between the New York Giants and the Washington football team. That was really a thriller. Always, divisional games are always thrillers. Let's just put it that way. Week three of college football, starting to notice a couple more things. I have a couple of things to really bring to your attention, a couple things that caught my eye. On today's show, I'll be talking about, like I just said, what caught my eye in week three of college football. I'm going to give out a game ball to the guy who had the best stats. I'm going to talk about what caught my eye in college football and give out a game ball to the guy who had the best numbers. And I'm going to go to the mailbox. I finally got some questions. Actually, got a really interesting one, and I can't wait to give my take on that. And then I'm going to end the show by promoting how you can keep up with me on social media, how you can keep up with me on all the other shows I contribute for, and a little sneak preview of what I think will happen tonight on Monday Night Football. And yeah, we'll go from there, and I'll plug the website and things like that. But let's dive right into it. It was week three of college football. Um, the marquee game of the day was the Auburn Tigers at the Penn State Nittany Lions. Now, let me just say this. It's rare that we do get a SEC versus Big Ten clash in the regular season. So getting that was definitely a cool experience to write about and just sit down and watch that game. But when I look at the game as a whole, Bo Nix played a lot better than I expected from him, because I know he's struggled the last couple of years in primetime games against quality opponents under the lights. But look at who Auburn was playing in their first 2 weeks. I believe they were playing um, Alabama State, and I believe they played another D2 school, and they put 60 points up on them, which really isn't difficult to do. Then you're going into Happy Valley, and it was the whiteout game. Now, this is something that we haven't had in 2 years. The whiteout game, uh, in Happy, every fan at Nittany Lion Stadium, they're dressed in white, and the crowd is really a factor in this game. And it was just cool to see that atmosphere once again in Happy Valley. I did get it right. I stumbled over my words. But Sean Clifford and the Nittany Lions, they're legit. They're so improved. They've won 7 in a row dating back to last year, their final four from last season, their first three of this year, and kind of jumped on their bandwagon a little bit after seeing them win in Camp Randall in week one against the Wisconsin Badgers. They're hard hitting, they're physical, they run the football. And the biggest question I've had with Penn State is, can Sean Clifford take a game over with his arm? And he's comfortable within that pocket. Uh, for the longest, I kept saying to myself, he's a run first quarterback and then throw second when he has to throw. When teams are loading that box or they're sitting on that line of scrimmage, then he's gonna throw the football. But no, that really hasn't been the case. He's been taking shots down the field. Jahan Dotson is a legit number one receiver and probably their best playmaker. They have a really good running back in Noah Kane and just weapons galore. And then defensively, I know Micah Parsons left. He's now playing for the Dallas Cowboys, but guys like Brandon Smith, he's really stepped up. Um, Overall, about this game, Penn State held on by a score of 28-20. Knicks played fairly well, but Auburn just ran out of gas, and Penn State kept their foot on the gas pedal. And since I'm on the topic of Penn State, I'm going to talk about this Big Ten East because it's really been intriguing and really been grabbing my attention um, since the beginning of the year because you have Michigan, the Michigan Wolverines, you have the Michigan State Spartans, you have the Penn State Nittany Lions, and then of course you have the team that's really run the Big Ten for the last 6 or 7 years. That's the Ohio State Buckeyes. Ohio State, they're a different team, obviously. No Justin Fields. You have a freshman quarterback in C.J. Stroud, but you still have Chris Olave, and you still have the other receiver. I just really lost his name. Chris Olave, and he'll come to me. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, Ohio State's different, and their defense has been struggling. Whereas you look at Michigan State this year, they're running the football and they're getting great quarterback play. And I noticed that Michigan State, they're buying into Mel Tucker. Last year was really an adjustment period for them. And now I just see a completely different team who really they're playing hard. And you have to realize something about new head coaches. New head coaches, they're almost like salesmen. So they really have to sell themselves to the team. And that Ohio State wide receiver I was talking about was Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave are two of the better wide receivers as a tandem in college football, and they're veterans, and they're going to provide that veteran leadership for the young quarterback C.J. Stroud in Columbus. Michigan, are they the real deal? They're 3-0, dominated Northern Illinois. Sorry to all my people that are Northern Illinois alums, but they dominated them by a score of 63-10. Are they the real deal? That's tough to say, but the one thing I will say is Michigan, they look settled, okay? There was always one year where one aspect of their offense was stronger than the other. They were either a better running team and they weren't getting consistent quarterback play, or they were getting consistent quarterback play, but they couldn't run the football. And I know they've been without one of their better playmaking wide receivers, and that's Ronnie Bell, which is a huge loss for them, and I wish him a speedy recovery, but they're balanced. The offensive line is great. Cade McNamara has come in and really given this team an elevated spark as a football team, and they run the football, which I want to touch on next. Blake Corum, Hassan Haskins, I call them Thunder and Lightning. I think this is the best duo of running backs in the country because each of them can impact the game. One can have 85 yards rushing. The other can have 115, but just as long as they both get their carries, I think they'll both make humongous impacts for this offense, and their defense is also playing well. I think it was time for Michigan to move on from Don Brown. Now you're seeing a lot more man coverage. They're keeping safeties high, and they're putting pressure on the quarterback. Like this Michigan team, they look complete early on. I can't wait to see what they do in Big Ten play. I already touched on Penn State, but Ohio State, they're 2-1, looking up to all those other teams, the Michigan State, Penn State, teams that I think they all play this year. But it still goes through them. Let's put it like that. I know they're a different team, but I could see them easily running the tables. But there's still conference play in the Big Ten to be had, and that's really going to tell us who's real and who's not for this Big Ten East. I was asked earlier, who do I think is the best team in the Big Ten East? Didn't want to say Michigan because I need to see a little bit more, and that's no disrespect to any Michigan Wolverine fan or anybody I know. I think it's Penn State. I just think they're complete on both sides of the ball, and they're so well coached. James Franklin is really, I think he saved his job because there have been the rumors about him being asked if not Notre Dame, excuse me, I'm getting my teams confused. If Penn State, if Penn State didn't come out the gate swinging, we could have seen a coaching change. But I'm glad to see James doing well. Yeah, the Big Ten, the Big Ten East is going to be really intriguing the rest of this way. I can say that much. Another thing I want to touch on, Oklahoma. They renewed a rivalry on Saturday with the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and that game on Saturday was actually the 50-year anniversary of the game of the century. Now, with Oklahoma, you know what you're going to get from their offense. Lincoln Riley is he's one of the best, if not the best, offensive mind in the country. He now has a quarterback project. He didn't really have that with Baker Mayfield in 2017 when he became the head coach, because Baker was already established from playing under Bob Stoops. Bob Stoops giving the keys to Lincoln. And what does Baker do? He has the best year of his collegiate career. It wins the Heisman. 2018, Kyler Murray comes in. What's Kyler do? Wins the Heisman. Both Baker and Kyler were both selected with the number one overall pick in their respective draft classes. Baker, 2018, Kyler, 2019. 2019, really, and last year. No, 2019, sorry, getting my numbers confused. Jalen Hurts, and Jalen had big game experience at Alabama under Nick Saban, and what do you know? He comes to Norman and finally gets a chance to play and takes over from there. So there's no issue with the Oklahoma offense. The biggest question mark that the Oklahoma Sooners have, it's their defense. It's their inability to get off the field, their inability to rush the passer, limit big plays, getting down the field, and vice versa. Like, that's the problem. And here's the thing. If their defense were as strong as their offense, this is the scariest team in college football, without a question. They're a legit national title contender, maybe competing for one of those top lines in the college football playoff bracket when it's announced in December. But they got to get, that defense has to be consistent. And I thought they were taking the right steps last year when Lincoln Riley decided to hire defensive coordinator Alex Grinch. But it seems like when they take 2 steps forward, they get pushed back 4 and 5 steps, and they got to get it together. But what I saw from them on Saturday, yeah, it was Nebraska. I know everybody's gonna say that when they watch this or they send me their thoughts on the show, but look, their defense played well. They had to grind that game out. And what about that interception by DJ Graham? One-handed, channeling his inner Odell Beckham Jr. One of the best interceptions I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of them over the years, but, you know, for him to have that angle and to go up and literally catch the ball as if he were robbing somebody of a home run on a baseball diamond, just absolutely remarkable. Where does Oklahoma go from here now? The way they played on Saturday against Nebraska, can that carry over for the remainder of the season? That's to be determined, because you can't just build off one game. You have to turn the page, and that same intensity and that same mentality that you had one game, you have to bring that to the next game. That's to be determined. They have talent. There's not a question about that. But when they put all that together and everything is consistent in each phase of the game, but most importantly, offensively and defensively, yeah, this team will be a problem for many years to come. The potential's there, and can they just reach? Can they scratch the surface? That's the only thing that I think is holding Oklahoma back is can they put a perennial championship defense out there? Look at Alabama. Alabama, we year in and year out, the offense is strong. They have an identity. Their defense is strong. Even when they lose guys on both sides of the ball, they rebuild. Like I said on the first show last week, they don't rebuild. They just reload. They're the New York Yankees of college football. They'll just go and get the best players, keep it moving, and they win. The Yankees haven't really done that in the last couple of years, but I digress. Wow, that's a good segue because that's exactly what I wanted to talk about next. Was Alabama. Alabama Crimson Tide, Florida Gators, first game since the SEC championship game, December 19th of 2020, and this was their first game at the Swamp in 10 years. And in typical Alabama fashion, what did they do? They were punching Florida in the mouth, and you were just gonna say, here we go again. But give Dan Mullen and Florida a lot of credit because they fought hard. They threw punches back. They outscored Alabama in that third quarter. They made it close in the fourth quarter, but they just couldn't convert that 2-point conversion. I think Alabama needed a game like this because blowing teams out, I get it's business as usual and getting the job done under Nick Saban, but you got to be able to show that you can win in a variety of different ways. And I think Alabama needed this. I think Florida needed this. I'll say this now. That game between the Florida Gators and the Georgia Bulldogs in a couple weeks, the world's largest cocktail party, which is normally played in Jacksonville, that's usually the game that determines who's going to clinch the SEC East and get that trip to Atlanta to play in the SEC title game in December. And yeah, that game just became more important. I think that's one I'll more than likely preview. One of my favorite matchups to preview, if we're being honest. I got to give Florida, again, a lot of credit because they weren't scared of Alabama. But sitting down and watching Bryce Young, I'm reminded of one guy. He's the closest thing I've seen to Russell, last name Wilson, in the National Football League. Kind of like a bigger version of Russell Wilson. When I look at Bryce, his jersey's always clean. He has great pocket awareness. He can spread the ball around. His field vision to be that young is absolutely remarkable. But, it's his ability to run, and that's where I say he kind of reminds me of Russell in a way. He has such command and control of that offense, and the team has really been taking after him. Alabama, they escape a narrow game by a score of 31-29. I wouldn't mind seeing this matchup down the stretch and back in Atlanta for the SEC title game. Alabama and Florida. Florida stuck with Alabama last year in that SEC title game, and that was a shootout. And this one wasn't necessarily a shootout, but points were put up. 60 points combined. Alabama had 31. Florida 29, as I just said. The one thing about Alabama that I will say, Alabama, they have trouble stopping mobile quarterbacks because their defense isn't built to stop mobile quarterbacks. Look at when they played Clemson all those years in the national championships. Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. What did both of them have in common? They were both mobile guys who could extend plays and make it happen with their feet. And Alabama had their hands full with Emory Jones, who I thought played a great game on Saturday. And it's funny, Florida last year, they were first in the country with their passing attack with Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts. Now, they're running the football, and they have to do that to make sure that the quarterback is getting on the same page. The running game still opens up the passing game. That's just facts right there. Okay. That's always trying to get football is a very pass happy game and it's a quarterback driven game, but running the football um, still pays its dividends at the end of the day. And the final thing I want to talk about with college football, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now, I know I was pretty vocal about them last week on the show and on the airwaves on some of the other shows I contribute for, but they beat Florida State by 3 in Tallahassee in a wild game. Then they beat Toledo by 3 and escaped that. What were they going to do with the in-state rival in the Purdue Boilermakers? I kept saying that Notre Dame, they couldn't look past Purdue because of the opponent that's on their schedule come next week, and that's the Wisconsin Badgers, which will be played here in Chicago, Illinois, at Soldier Field. And when I say that, I really mean it because with Notre Dame and teams in general, they can overlook teams. They just say, "Oh, we're leaps and bounds better than them." All we have to do is show up. But I always say anybody can be beat on any given Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday night. It does not matter. Did you really expect the Baltimore Ravens to beat the Las Vegas Raiders last week? Nope. But Notre Dame got off to a fast start and they finally dominated. Their run defense is really good, and Kyle Hamilton, I could watch this kid all day. I can't wait to see what he does for the remainder of the year, but most importantly, what he does in the NFL. Because I think he's a top 5 or at worst top 10 draft pick in the draft this spring. But the one concern I have with Notre Dame is their offensive line. Their O-line, usually they have one of the better offensive lines in college football. That's kind of been a staple under Brian Kelly, but this year they're not that great. I saw Jack Cohn running for his life on Saturday in South Bend, and he was sacked 4 times. That's not going to cut it. They got to do a better job because a lot of these teams that they play on their schedule, their specialty is getting to the quarterback, and teams are going to look at how Notre Dame's offensive line is struggling. They're going to attack that, and they're going to capitalize upon that weakness. But Notre Dame is 3-0. They're ranked 12th in the newest AP polls. That game in Chicago, I think, is going to be really fun. The atmosphere is going to be live. Notre Dame fans travel, so their fan base will really be in full attendance, as will Wisconsin's. They play the Wisconsin Badgers. I know this is where College Game Day will be, and I know I will be previewing this game sometime during the week. Can't give you all that. Then the other college game that's really catching my eye for week 4 is Texas A&M and Arkansas. Texas A&M, they're really taking that next step under Jimbo Fisher. This is why he was bought to College Station, was to elevate these teams. You didn't really see that under Kevin Sumlin. No disrespect to him. He's a good coach, but Jimbo is one of the 5 best coaches in college football. In Arkansas, they're running the football. They're taking care of the ball. Their defense is playing physically. This game will be played at Jerry World, AT&T Stadium in Texas, where the Dallas Cowboys play. Another game I'll be previewing this week. That's all I really have for college football. It's time to give out a game ball. Of course, as always, there are always guys that stand up, but only one can get it. I'm giving this one to the Iowa Hawkeyes running back. He goes by the name of Tyler Goodson. 22 carries, 153 yards rushing, 3 touchdown passes, and an Iowa win over Kent State. The kid averaged about 7.5 yards per carry. That's pretty impressive. Congratulations, Tyler. That's all I have for college football. Now it's time to transition over into where a lot of these college kids hope to be within the next couple of years. And that's the National Football League. As I said at the beginning of the show, week 2 of the NFL started on Thursday. Had another thrilling Thursday night game. New York Giants, Washington football team. As of late, the New York Giants have owned the Washington football team. I know they swept them both times last year. Watching this game, I see Saquon Barkley is still very nervous with that knee. You don't see that explosiveness that we're accustomed to seeing. And to be honest with you, I can't blame him. Kind of reminds me of seeing Adrian Peterson play that year. Like, I would get so hesitant every time I saw Adrian run the ball that year in 2012. But the way he came back, it's like he was never injured. Wild game. Daniel Jones throwing a pass to Darius Slayton, who was wide open in the end zone. And the ball just literally ricocheted off his hands. Washington was finally getting the start from Taylor Heineke. Remember, he played in the playoffs last year for the Washington football team and did pretty good against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But this was his first start filling in for Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I think even when Fitz does come back, Ron Rivera and that team, they need to stick with Taylor Heineke. He gives them more of an added dimension offensively because he can run, he can extend plays, whereas Fitzpatrick, he's older, and you just never know what you're going to get from him. Defensively, Washington really didn't. They got to Daniel Jones, but I felt they could have done a little bit better. It came down to one final play, and Washington ended up winning the game by a score of 30-29 for the fifth straight year. The New York Giants have started 0-2, and ever since the Giants took that picture of them on the boat before their playoff game at Miami, the Giants are 18-48. Something's got to give. The Giants play hard. I think their problem is they can't finish football games. Plain and simple. And I don't think Daniel Jones is the answer for them moving forward. This kid's had year in and year out to prove that he's the solution for them, and he's not. Is Joe Judge the solution at coach? They play hard for him, but something's got to give because it's just not cutting it with the Giants. Like, the Giants will stay in games for 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter comes, and they just shoot themselves in the foot. That's all I can really say about the Giants. But some other things that really caught my eye yesterday in the NFL. How about the Las Vegas Raiders? That's a tough stretch of games to play. To play on Monday night, have that short week, travel from Las Vegas, which is on the West Coast, to the East Coast, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and to face another physical opponent in the Pittsburgh Steelers. You thought everything was in the Steelers' favor coming into this game. They're home, fans are back, waving the terrible towels, and you just thought the Steelers were the better team, especially with how they looked and how they dominated the Buffalo Bills in week 1. But that wasn't the case. I really got to give a lot of credit to Derek Carr. This is the best I've seen him look since 2016. I know it's 2 games, but he's taking care of the ball. He's not forcing the ball down the field. He's spreading the ball around. The offensive line's doing a really good job of keeping him upright and protected in that pocket and on his feet. And the defense, I know the defense was a big lapse and a big struggle last year. But they're slightly improving after 2 games. And they played that physical brand of football and won a tough game. That's a tough schedule your first 2 weeks of the year. You play the Baltimore Ravens in week 1, who's one of the more physical teams, not just in the AFC, but in the National Football League. And then you got to fly across country to Pittsburgh in week 2, and you come out victorious in both. This is a team you really are gonna have to watch. John Gruden may finally have something going, but again, only time will tell. It's only 2 games. Let's not get carried away, but I am very impressed, and I will tip my cap to the Las Vegas Raiders. That touchdown pass from Derek Carr to Henry Ruggs. Derek just saw the entire glitch in the secondary, and he just took a shot down the field, and I'm just asking, where was the safety? But transitioning over to the Steelers side, they better find offense, and they better find offense quickly, because Najee Harris is looking like a wasted draft pick. That offensive line does not look improved at all. Um, they still can't generate a ground game, because they found Najee Harris in so many different ways yesterday. More as a receiver. I think Ben Roethlisberger's arm strength is beginning to diminish. I think this is his final year as the Steelers quarterback. I think, he's done more than enough. He's proven himself. The Steelers need to get their next franchise quarterback. Yeah, the offense just looked lost yesterday, because anytime they had a drive where they could come away with some points or convert for a first down, they couldn't do it. So you got to give a lot of credit to the Raiders defense for that. But yeah, the Steelers, they were punched in the mouth, especially after punching an opponent in the mouth the week before in Orchard Park against the Buffalo Bills. But to say I'm concerned about the Steelers, it's not an understatement. It's the absolute truth. The Steelers, like I said, they better find offense quickly. And I have a problem when your 38 or however old he is, 39-year-old quarterback is throwing a football more than 35 times. I think they need more balance. Run the ball, have Ben throw the ball 30 times at the most, and convert to the short passing game. Similarly to how Peyton Manning did when he became the Denver Broncos quarterback. Peyton knew he had limited arm strength. So what did he do? He used his smarts and depended on those crossing routes over the middle of the field. That's what the Steelers need to do. And I even said that last year. Because of the Steelers' lack of a running game, their equivalent of a running game was the short passing game, because the offensive line wasn't built to put hands in the dirt and run block. They were built to pass block. So the short passing game would force teams to put guys in a box, and Ben would use his play action and take those shots down the field, even if they have to go back to that until they can get Najee Harris stirred up and going. Why not? Hopefully Mike Tomlin can make some type of adjustment, because the Steelers are better than this. Speaking of other teams that punched their opponent in the mouth in week 1 and then got it served to them in week 2, the New Orleans Saints. I was so impressed with them in week 1, just how they were able to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. They were able to run the football. Jameis took care of the ball. You didn't see any of that yesterday in Charlotte against the Carolina Panthers. Big game in the NFC South. Panthers, Saints, and the Saints were punched in the mouth. One thing I've noticed about the Saints over the years, especially since Sean Payton became their head coach in 2006, yeah, I know the Saints always were a dominant passing team. I mean, look, you had arguably the most prolific passer in NFL history in Drew Brees, but the Saints didn't hesitate to run that football. Okay, you saw what Alvin Kamara was able to do last week and what he's done the last couple of years since coming into the league. He's one of the best running backs in the National Football League, but he was shut down yesterday. I think he had only 8 carries for 5 yards, so Carolina really clamped down, sat on that line of scrimmage and said, you know what, we're going to make Jameis beat us. And instead of seeing we saw the Jameis old yesterday. A guy who refused to take sacks, and when guys are gravitating themselves to him and throwing the ball, and he's trying to throw the ball, he's making frustration throws, and that turns into interceptions, and he threw 2 or 3 interceptions, if I'm not mistaken. The Saints could just never get into a rhythm. Their defense was punched in the mouth. And give Carolina a lot of credit. This is a team that's really bought into what Matt Rule is trying to sell. Comes from Baylor. It's a different year. It's a different system for him. And I know Christian McCaffrey is healthy, but can we give Sam Darnold some credit? I really think that kid needed a change of scenery. He just looks like a rejuvenated guy. He's playing freely. He's playing freely. He's taking care of the ball, and he has a running game to lean on. He has more coming into this year with Carolina than he did all those years he played with the New York Jets. That's just the fact of the matter. Carolina's defense played well. They flew to the ball. They were playing from sideline to sideline. Though those guys in the secondary played well for a minute. I thought Carolina was trying to give the Saints that game back, but they were able to hold on. Saints got to go back to the drawing board. They're in Foxborough this upcoming weekend against Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots, who dominated themselves yesterday against the New York Jets. Coming into that game, I remember telling a couple of my friends and the people I contribute for on the radio that Bill Belichick is going to go to a an old school game plan, which is running the football, controlling the clock, the defense handling their business, and they were going to win this game with special teams as well. And they did just that. Damian Harris had a couple big runs, and he was beast mode on one run. Then again, it's not that difficult to run against the New York Jets. Defensively, man, they played press coverage all day, and they forced 4 interceptions of the second round draft pick, Zach Wilson. And they won the game through special teams as well. They didn't ask Mac Jones to take the game over with his arm. They just said, do not lose us the football game. Control the clock, hand the ball off, make throws when you need to, but just make sure you hold on to the football. And they did just that. Patriots are 1-1. They haven't started 0-2 probably since 2001, which was the year when Drew Bledsoe sheared his blood vessel and a guy named Tom Brady came in, and the rest is history. I know two more things I wanted to touch on in the NFL. The Dallas Cowboys. They played in a thrilling game week 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Almost beat them, if we're being realistic here. And after the game, I kept saying, look, it was great to see Dak Prescott back, but he threw the ball way too much. He threw the ball 58 times in that game, and that's just not the Cowboys' formula for them to win football games. They got to run the ball, and they have to be balanced. But, like I said, Mike McCarthy, he's extremely allergic to running the football, which is sad because it's almost like you're wasting a talent out there in Ezekiel Elliott. But had all this time to game plan. They had a game on the West Coast at SoFi Stadium playing the Los Angeles Chargers. And did any of you see that game? It sounded like there were more Cowboy fans there than there were Charger fans. Like, that's unbelievable. But the Cowboys, they played with balance. Dak threw the football 27 times. They ran the football 31 times. When they play like that, they're impossible to beat. When they're physically dominating you with their offensive line and they're pushing you off that line of scrimmage and they're dominating in the run, Dak can use his play action. He can take shots down the field. He looked more in control. I like what I saw from the Dallas Cowboys yesterday. And defensively, they played well. They were able to get after Justin Herbert, rush him a couple of times. I know they played without DeMarcus Lawrence yesterday, and I thought this game was going to be a shootout with Dak and Justin Herbert, but it was a low-scoring game. The Cowboys won by a score of 20-17 to get their first win of the year. And what a difference being 0-1 made. Being at 500 than it is being 0-2. The Cowboys haven't started 0-2 since the 2010 season. I remember that season like it was yesterday. The Cowboys were hyped up to be in the Super Bowl in their own home stadium. It didn't happen. It did happen recently with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they won the big game at home in front of their fans against the Kansas City Chiefs, which leads me to my next game I want to talk about. Kansas City Chiefs, Baltimore Ravens, fourth career meeting between the two young quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Okay, so I'll say this about Kansas City. I'm kind of concerned about them offensively, and you're probably looking at this and you're going to say, why? Why is that? Outside of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, who else can they depend on? Like, to be that other legit weapon. Mecole Hardman, he's good. Don't get me wrong. Love Mecole Hardman. I think he's a great option for them. But he's a slot guy. He's not a guy that can go up and stretch the field vertically. Saw some good things from Demarcus Robinson last week. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they were trying to feed him the ball. I know he had a costly fumble in that game. And Baltimore, how were they going to bounce back? Because they let one slip through their hands last Monday night against the Las Vegas Raiders. And they were back home. Fans were in the stands. The Hall of Famer Ray Lewis came out, and did the dance. I'm not going to do it. And Lamar in that offense just played controlled. Now I want to say this: the whole Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick debate. I saw this on social media earlier from my good friend Everett Carpenter. Lamar is a better quarterback at this age now than Michael Vick was. I know this is a debate we always come across on social media or on football debate pages and whatnot. And I can agree that Lamar is a much better quarterback at this age than Michael Vick was, because when Michael played, Mike was a runner first and a passer second. Lamar has a better feel and a better understanding of the pocket when he's dropping back, and when nothing is down the field for him to throw the ball to, he's running. And you can't blame him right then and there, but he wants to take shots down the field, and he did a lot of those last night. The game was really a tale of two halves. Kansas City, I think, ran out of gas going into the fourth quarter. Kansas City's defense, minus the 36 points given up, they forced turnovers. They got off the field sometimes, but it was their offense that really couldn't put a stamp on things. And that's what hurt them. Baltimore wins a close game, 36-35. Lamar finally gets his first win over Patrick Mahomes. What a great game. I would love to see these two meet in the playoffs, and I hope the NFL continues to give us this matchup. Just like we were blessed to get Peyton Manning and Tom Brady 17 times, I think we're going to get this Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes matchup for the next couple of years, especially when they're young and they're going into the prime of their careers. Both guys have already won MVPs. One's been in a Super Bowl 2 years in a row. One is looking to get to his first Super Bowl. One just won his first playoff game last year. And here's a crazy fact for you. This was the Chiefs' first time losing in September with Patrick Mahomes as a starting quarterback. Yeah. And that's crazy, ain't it? They have finally tasted defeat in the month of December. They have a big game on Sunday at home against the Los Angeles Chargers, one I will be previewing on the site. I'm full of shameless plugs, and I will plug the show, the website at the end of the show. Tom Brady, since we're on the subject of quarterbacks, I've seen a lot of Tom over the years. I remember when he first came in for Drew Bledsoe, he never looked back. I remember that 2007 season, 2010. Every year, it seems like every year as he gets older, he plays better. Like, I think he's throwing the ball with a lot more zip and confidence and authority now than he did, say, 10 years ago, which is scary to say because he's dropping back in that pocket. He's flinging it, and it's getting exactly where it needs to be. Remember, the man's been in the league 22 years, so he's seen just about every coverage imaginable. He's seen every blitz scheme, every zone scheme, every man scheme. Look, I'll admit, Tampa had me a little scared yesterday because defensively, they let Atlanta hang around, but Brady just looks so more comfortable now within the offensive scheme in Tampa Bay. And Byron Leftwich is kind of letting him do his own thing, letting him send guys in motion, letting him change the play at the line of scrimmage. Didn't really see a lot of that the first 6 or 7 games last year in Tampa because he was still learning the offense as the games were going along because there was no training camp due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But Tampa's 2-0. They have a huge game next week against the Los Angeles Rams, a team who escaped with a narrow win in Indianapolis yesterday. I think this Rams team is better now than what it was with Jared Goff because Matthew Stafford is far more accurate than what Jared Goff was. They're still able to run the football. And I know I've been complaining about the Rams not having that number one receiver, but I think Van Jefferson is really becoming that vertical threat down the field because Robert Woods and Cooper Cup, excuse me, they like to run those crossing patterns and like to keep things underneath. They can get down the field, but they don't do it consistently. Van Jefferson is a possession guy that can take the top off your zone defense. I cannot wait for that game next week. Both teams are 2-0, and I said coming into the year, if there's one team that can challenge the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's these Los Angeles Rams because they have the formula to get after Tom Brady, which is pressuring him up the middle and getting him off his spot. I think pressure is gonna be the theme of this game on Sunday. Again, that'll be a fun one. Tampa has their sights set on SoFi because that's where the Super Bowl is this February in 2022. So that's all I really have about the NFL. Let's give out a game ball. And I think a lot of you guys know where I'm going with this. That grown man that plays in Nashville, Tennessee, Mr. Derrick Henry. And say it with me. You could even finish it if you want to. You better have game. If you have two first names, it's only right. You can't be out here with two first names and not deliver. And Derrick Henry did. I know he was shut down against the Arizona Cardinals in week 1. Give the Cardinals credit again because they sat on that line of scrimmage and they put the game in the hands of Ryan Tannehill. And this was a big game for the Tennessee Titans to go up to Seattle, which is a hostile environment, and get a win. And they did that in overtime. And Derrick Henry just took that game over. Look, the Tennessee Titans go as Derrick Henry goes. When he's stiff-arming people and he's getting into that third tier of the defense and he's getting up the field with that speed for a man his size, the Tennessee Titans are a force to be reckoned with, and he had himself quite a game. 237 yards from scrimmage. He ran the ball 35 times, 182 yards rushing, 55 yards receiving on 6 receptions, had a couple of touchdowns there. Look, congratulations, Derek. I don't think this will be the last time that I'll be giving you a game ball. I think you're going to do something to wow and amaze me again. That's all I have for the NFL. Week 2 concludes tonight. Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers. Little preview of that. The Lions, they fought hard last week. They were getting punched in the mouth against the San Francisco 49ers, and they fought hard. They fought back into that game. They were down 28 points, but remember, Kyle Shanahan and the number 28 just don't get along. And they fought back. I had to say that much. They're always going to be a tough out for certain teams, but what can you say? This is the NFL. Anything can happen on any given Sunday. As I said a couple of minutes ago. Earlier in the show, the Packers, they were just flat out embarrassed last week, and the way Aaron Rodgers was sounding, it kind of reminded me of 2014 when everybody was panicking and he just said, RELAX, relax, everything is going to be just fine. Here's the thing about playing in this business. You can't dwell on the last game. You can only turn the page and focus on what's next. And this is the Packers home opener. Full house with fans at Lambeau for the first time in 2 years. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. The Lions always seem to play the Packers tough. I don't know what it is, but I don't see that tonight. I see Aaron Rodgers really playing with that chip on his shoulder. I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers in this game. I think they win by 2 touchdowns. I'm going to say 27-13. I think Aaron Rodgers has 3 touchdown passes. Aaron Jones will have one, and that defense will get after Jared Goff as well. So one thing I always wanted to do on this show, I didn't get a chance to do it last week because I didn't get any questions. Now I do. Something called the mailbox segment where I have you, the viewer, ask me questions and I try my hardest to answer all of them. And if I don't answer them on here, forgive me. I will give you a direct answer via email or on social media. And I got 2 of them. The first one here, I'm looking them up right here on my phone. The first one that I got was from Jeffrey Wright. So Jeffrey asks, should Justin Fields start for the Bears at Cleveland next Sunday to learn what he has to learn, or is starting Andy Dalton again if he's healthy the right thing to do? Justin still has to learn. Matt Nagy's gonna stick with Andy, but if Andy can't go and if Andy isn't healthy, then it's gonna be Justin's time to shine. I did say that he would be starting by week 3 or week 4, so only time will tell. Hopefully, I would love to see the kid get a little bit more time to develop, play with the first team offense, and the defense do their best they can to get the ball back. But if they ride with Andy, they're gonna ride with Andy. But it's a matter of time before they really groom Justin Fields in to the starter. And that's what I have to say about that. The next question comes from Joe Grisso. What's up, Joe? He asks, of the 5 rookie quarterbacks, who are you most impressed with so far? Least impressed? And do you think Lance starts for the Niners at some point this season? Okay, the last question, yes, I do think Trey will start at some point. I think it's not a matter of if it'll happen, it's a matter of when it'll happen. I would love to see what this kid can bring to the table. Least impressed, I'm going to have to say Zach Wilson. I just think he's pressing and he's trying to squeeze the ball into a lot of tight windows. Don't always look for a shot. Dink and dump it. Run. Take sacks. I know taking a sack isn't necessarily the greatest thing, but when you take a sack, you hold on to the ball and your team still has the ball. Think about it like that. And then who am I most impressed with? Trevor hasn't looked bad. He hasn't looked good either, but he hasn't looked bad. I think he's in between. He's finally getting a taste of the professional life, and he has a losing record at any level for the first time. He never lost a game in high school, never lost a regular season game in college, won that national championship with Clemson, and now he's 0-2 so far in the NFL. And the final question comes from my man Rob Carter, and he says, what's going on, Harlem? That's my nickname, by the way. I'm from Harlem, New York, and I have it tatted on my right wrist. He says, what's going on, Harlem? Congratulations on expanding the brand by adding the podcast to the mix of things. I wanted to pick your brain on this question that popped up in my mind during week 1. As I watched Antonio Brown turn back the hands of time against Dallas and Tyreek Hill dominate against Cleveland, I started to wonder, who are the top 5 wide receivers of all time under 6 feet tall? I thought it'd be a good topic to entertain. Let me know your thoughts. Your boy Rob. Okay, number 1, that's a great question. Wow. Yeah, that's a really good question. Let's get to it. Steve Largent is one of them. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame for a reason. He was always available for the Seattle Seahawks. I can't talk about the history of Seattle Seahawks football without mentioning him. He was 5'11", about 187 pounds, and he was just that vertical threat. He had no problem going up the field and really making defenders look silly. He was tough as well, and you really don't find him like that anymore. He has that gold jacket in Canton, as I said, and that bronze bust. Very reliable, quick hands. A guy that you always have to circle in on when you play the Seattle Seahawks. Like, don't let him beat us. So he's definitely on the list. I have to say Julian Edelman. He's also on the list as well. It seemed like him making that change. Remember, he was a quarterback when he was coming into the league, and he became a wide receiver under Belichick in that system, and Bill really got the best of him. He was a guy that could line up wide and line up in the slot primarily, and I always say he played with the mentality of a running back because he was so difficult to bring down. He was so tough, and he was another safety valve for Tom Brady all those years on those Patriots teams. Like, Tom could just throw it over the middle to Jules, and Jules would just do the rest. They used him in so many ways, but it always seemed like the brighter the lights and the bigger the stage, aka in January/February, the better he was. I remember that game against the Rams when Brady won his sixth Super Bowl. He was just all over the field. The Rams had no answer for him. Tough. He had to retire because of a knee injury, but he was just as tough as they come. Another guy, Wes Welker. Wes Welker was sneaky fast. He was a guy that really benefited from Randy Moss's presence on those Patriots teams because teams would throw the house at Randy and say, "Look, we're gonna double you, we're gonna triple you, we're gonna play bracket coverage on you," and that's why Brady and Wes Welker were able to find that chemistry and that connection with one another. He was so shifty. A guy, you knew he was getting the ball when he was going in motion. Played all those years with Tom Brady, who really got the best of him. Then, years later, he goes to Denver and plays with another iconic quarterback, a Hall of Famer at that, in Mr. Peyton Manning. And, he was that piece over the middle for Peyton and those Denver teams as well. And they had great chemistry. I can't mention those shorter receivers under 6 feet without mentioning Wes Welker. And another one I can't mention is Steve Smith Sr. He's up for the Hall of Fame in 2022. He was 5'9", but played like he was 6'2" or 6'3" because he had no problem. He had no fear. He had no problem going down the field vertically to make that big catch. And he had no problem letting you know he just made a play. He was always telling people to ice up, son. One of the toughest football players I ever saw, one of my personal favorites. Had those reliable hands, could go over the middle. He was a threat in the red zone. However he was used, he was productive. And I hope he gets that gold jacket next year because I think he's more than deserving of it. And a guy you mentioned, Antonio Brown. Now, look, he's past his prime. I think he's a smarter player now than what he was when he was in Pittsburgh. But look at all those years in Pittsburgh. He had about 5 or 6 years of 100 or more catches. That was starting to elevate him into the Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, and Terrell Owens conversation. He and Ben had tremendous chemistry with one another, and those were the days, man. I thought Antonio was one of the best wide receivers in football, if not the best at that time during that stretch. And that's my question. That's my answer to your question. Thank you for that. So with that being said, I'm going to end the show right now. It was fun. Time is a beautiful thing, like I always say, but it goes by so quickly, and that is my time for today. I want to thank you for tuning in and following along with me. I hope you guys have fun enjoying watching this and listening to it as I did recording it and making it for you. As always, I want to give a shout out to my family, my beautiful mother, my beautiful sister Taylor, my son, aka my dog, Siebes, my other little sister Tanisha, so many of my friends, everybody who just asked a question, both parents in that. I know I just shouted out my mom, but both parents, my cousin / big brother Sean Jameson. He's been supporting me since day one. I'm probably gonna call him in a little bit to talk a little football with him. And how can you keep up with me, you ask? This is where I promote that. Log on to the website, which is thedailyblitz.blog. Follow us on Twitter at dailyblitz_61. Like the Facebook fan page, facebook.com/thedailyblitz. Follow us on Instagram at @thedailyblitz_61. Follow along with my IGTV series, which is called What's on Tap, where I look ahead to what's on the schedule for the upcoming days of football. I film them every Saturday and Sunday morning. Keep up with me through the airways. Keep up with me. I'm on the Prime with Israel Rivera and Matt James. All right, had a brain freeze there. Israel Rivera, Matt James, David Hoffman, TJ Hopkins every Monday and Tuesday On the Nerd Zone with my guys Ronnie Coombs, John Danzo, Christopher Lawrence, Ryan Shaw. Catch me on College Football World with Israel Rivera and Matt James. And you can catch me on Sports Cubicle, which is on WCPT 8:20 a.m. in Chicago, Illinois. If you live out the state of Illinois, I will more than gladly get you the link. Guys, I can't say enough. Time flew by and got a lot of content. I cannot wait to get this on YouTube and blast it for you guys so you guys can check it out. Thank you again for always supporting me. Enjoy Monday Night Football. Have a great night. Have a great rest of the week. The world is yours and everything in it is out there. Get on your grind and get it. I will see you next Monday, God willing.